Every kid in America knew the way to the door, past the bikes, past the board games, into a store the size of an airplane hangar, stacked to the ceiling with every toy you had ever wanted. For half a century, that was where childhood went shopping. And then, one spring, the doors closed for good, not because children stopped wanting toys, but because a company still selling billions of dollars of them every year was quietly bled to death from the inside. On the table today, Toys R Us. A giant that didn't really lose to Amazon. It didn't really lose to Walmart. It lost to a stack of paperwork signed in a boardroom in the summer of 2005. Let's begin the autopsy. To understand how big this body once was, you have to go back to 1948. A young veteran named Charles Lazarus opened a baby furniture shop in Washington, D.C., called Children's Bargain Town. Parents kept asking him for one thing his shelves didn't have: toys. So he added them. And in 1957, he flipped the whole idea into something new, a store that sold nothing but toys, all year round, at prices nobody could beat. He called it Toys R Us, with the R printed backwards, as if a child had written it. Lazarus had stumbled onto a genuinely radical idea. Back then, toys were a Christmas business. Lazarus built a supermarket for them aisle after aisle, open in July the same as December. He bought an enormous volume, stacked it high, and sold it cheap. Retailers would later give this model a name: the Category Killer. A store so deep in one single category that no general store could compete on selection or price. Geoffrey the giraffe became the mascot in 1965, and an entire generation grew up singing that they didn't want to grow up because they were a Toys R Us kid. The idea spread fast. New stores opened at a furious pace across the country, then across the ocean, Canada, Britain, Japan, Germany. A spin-off, Babies R Us, captured expecting parents before their child could even hold a rattle, locking in customers for the next decade of birthdays and holidays. It was a machine for turning childhood itself into recurring revenue, and for a long stretch, the machine ran flawlessly. And it worked on a scale that is hard to imagine now. Through the 1980s and 90s, Toys R Us became the largest toy retailer on Earth. At its peak, it controlled roughly a quarter of the entire American toy market. Toy makers lived and died by its orders. If Toys R Us didn't stock your product basically didn't exist. When Charles Lazarus stepped down as chief executive in 1994, his company ran more than 1,000 stores across 17 countries and pulled in around $11 billion a year. It had beaten the department stores. It had beaten the mom-and-pop toy shops. It looked unkillable. And this wasn't just a business, it was a place. For millions of families, a trip to Toys R Us was an event, a birthday reward, a Saturday ritual, the sound of a kid rounding the corner and freezing in front of a wall of bicycles. That emotional grip is exactly why the brand felt permanent. The company went public, its stock became a Wall Street favorite, and for years it did the one thing every retailer dreams of: it set the rules of its entire industry. Nobody in 1998 was writing its obituary. By the turn of the millennium, that confidence was carved in steel and neon. In 2001, Toys R Us opened a flagship in the middle of Times Square, 110,000 square feet of toys, wrapped around the largest indoor Ferris wheel in the world. Spinning right there inside the store, tourists lined up just to ride it. It was the kind of monument a company builds only when it believes it will be here forever. For decades, it had been a public company that survived recessions, fads, and the rise of the shopping mall. If you had asked anyone in that Ferris wheel line whether Toys R Us could simply cease to exist, they would have laughed at you. Now, if you've ever walked those aisles as a kid, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This channel is where we perform the autopsy on the giants everyone assumed would live forever. Because the strange part of this story isn't that Toys R Us died. It's that it was still profitable, still enormous, when the fatal wound was inflicted. So where did the first crack appear? The first crack looked, at the time, like a smart bet on the future. In the year 2000, the internet was still new and scary for old retailers, and Toys R Us made a deal with a hungry young company called Amazon. For 10 years, Toys R Us would be the exclusive seller of toys on Amazon's site. Toys R Us paid Amazon around $50 million a year, plus a slice of sales, and in return it got to skip the hard, expensive work of building its own online store. It felt clever. Let the tech company handle the website, we'll handle the toys. It was a catastrophe in slow motion. Amazon quietly began letting other toy sellers onto the platform too. the very competitors Toys R Us thought it had locked out. By 2004, Toys R Us sued, claiming Amazon had broken the exclusivity deal, and eventually won the right to walk away. But winning the lawsuit didn't matter. While Toys R Us had outsourced its future to a rival, it had spent years not learning how to sell online itself. Amazon had used the partnership to master the one thing Toys R Us most needed to learn. The student had been paying the teacher $50 million a year to take its lunch. By the time the courts freed Toys R Us from the deal in 2006, the damage was done. Amazon had a 6-year head start, and a warehouse network Toys R Us could only dream of. And in the most important shift in retail history, the biggest toy seller on the planet had sat out the opening act. And that was only one front. Back in the physical world, a different kind of predator had arrived. Walmart and Target didn't need to beat Toys R Us on selection. They just used cheap toys as bait to pull families in, then sold them groceries and everything else on the same trip. Walmart launched a toy price war. Target matched it. By 2005, Walmart was selling more toys than Toys R Us. The category killer was being outkilled by stores that treated toys as a loss leader. So here is the picture in 2005. A legendary brand, still huge, still bringing in over $11 billion a year, but bruised, behind on the internet, and squeezed on price. A company with real problems. The kind of problems a well-run company survives. What it needed was money and time to reinvent itself. Instead, it got the opposite. In the summer of 2005, 3 Wall Street firms, the private equity giants KKR and Bain Capital, and the real estate firm Vornado bought Toys R Us for $6.6 billion. And notice who was buying. 2 were private equity firms, companies whose entire business is buying other companies with borrowed money, squeezing out profit, and moving on. The third, Vornado, was a real estate firm. That detail matters. Toys R Us sat on a great deal of valuable property, and for at least one of the buyers, part of the appeal was the land beneath the stores, not the toys inside them. This is the moment on the table today, because of how they bought it. This was a leveraged buyout, and the word leveraged is the whole story. The buyers didn't pay $6.6 billion of their own money. They put in only about $1.33 billion between them. The rest, more than $5 billion, was borrowed. And here's the twist that people outside of finance almost never see coming. That debt didn't go onto the buyer's books. It went onto Toys R Us. Picture buying a house you can't afford, and instead of you signing the mortgage, you force the house itself to take out the loan, then bill the house every month for the payments. That, in plain terms, is a leveraged buyout. The buyers get to own something enormous, while risking very little of their own money, because the thing they bought is the thing on the hook for the debt. If it works, they make a fortune. If it fails, the company and its workers absorb the loss. Toys R Us was now the house, and the shareholders who sold were paid $26.75 a share, a tidy premium, and walked away happy. The people who would inherit the consequences didn't get a vote. Read that again. The company was made to borrow the money used to buy itself. Overnight, a business that had been carrying manageable debt was saddled with more than $5 billion of it, and the bill for that loan now had to be paid out of toy sales. Interest payments alone came to around $400 million a year. $400 million, every year, gone before a single new store, a single website upgrade, a single price cut. That is the incision. Everything after this is just the body, reacting. Quick question, while the tag's still on the toe, drop a comment. What was the last thing you ever bought at a Toys R Us? I read them. Now, watch what $400 million a year does to a company that's trying to fight Amazon. Here is what that debt did. Every dollar that should have gone into fixing the stores, or building a real website, or matching Walmart's prices, went instead to lenders. Competitors were pouring money into e-commerce and clean, modern stores. Toys R Us couldn't. Shoppers walked into stores that felt tired, bad lighting, long lines, empty shelves, not because the company was run by fools, but because it had almost no money left to spend on anything except survival. The debt had turned a fixable problem into a slow suffocation. And while the company gasped, the firms that had loaded it with debt kept collecting. According to the Private Equity Stakeholder Project, KKR, Bain, and Vornado pulled more than $470 million in fees and interest out of Toys R Us over the years that followed. The patient was bleeding, and the people holding the clamps were, critics argue, charging by the hour. The firms have said their goal was always to turn the business around. But the math is hard to look away from. The company drowned, while the advice got paid. And this was the pattern for more than a decade. Rather than pay the debt down, the company and its owners kept refinancing it, swapping old loans for new ones, extending the deadlines, layering fresh borrowing on top of the old. Every refinancing bought a little more time and generated a fresh round of fees for the bankers who arranged it. It was like a household that keeps opening new credit cards just to make the minimum payment on the last ones. The balance never shrank. It only ever moved. And every month it sat there. It demanded its $400 million a year, whether the toy aisles were packed or empty. For over a decade, Toys R Us performed this magic trick, staying alive under a mountain of debt by pushing the due dates further and further out. But debt always comes due. By 2017, roughly $5 billion of it was coming home, and there was no more road to kick it down. In September of 2017, weeks before the most important holiday season of the year, Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At first, bankruptcy didn't mean death. Chapter 11 is supposed to be a hospital, not a morgue, a chance to shed debt and reorganize while keeping the doors open. Toys R Us secured billions in emergency financing to keep the lights on, and executives insisted the stores would survive. The plan was to close the weakest locations, fix the rest, and come out leaner and lighter. For a few months, it genuinely looked like the giant might pull through. Then came the holidays. The timing was fatal. Word that a retailer is bankrupt right before Christmas spooks the suppliers, the toy makers who ship product on credit. Many demanded cash up front or held their shipments back. Shelves that should have been overflowing in December sat half empty. The holiday season that might have bought the company one more year instead became the final blow. The turnaround plan collapsed. In March of 2018, Toys R Us gave up. It announced it would close or sell every one of its stores in the United States. 735 stores, 33,000 employees, cashiers, stockers, store managers. People who had given decades to that giraffe were told they would lose their jobs. And in a letter dated March 15th, they were told something worse. There would be no severance, no cushion, just a date and a locked door. For many of those 33,000 people, Toys R Us wasn't a first job, it was a career. Store managers who had spent 20 and 30 years with the company found themselves ushering shoppers toward the exits during the going out of business sales, ringing up the final discounts on the shelves they had stocked for decades, and then handing back their keys with nothing. Meanwhile, the same bankruptcy that left them empty-handed had, for years, reliably found the money to pay the interest. The registers were closing, but the debt had never once missed a meal. The workers fought back. They pointed out that the private equity owners had extracted hundreds of millions in fees while the company sank, and now claimed there was nothing left for the people who ran the registers. After months of public pressure, KKR and Bain Capital agreed to set up a hardship fund for former employees, $10 million each, $20 million in total. Set that $20 million next to the $470 million those firms had collected, and you have the entire moral of the story in two numbers. And the workers didn't win quietly. Laid off Toys R Us. Employees organized across the country, more than 150 actions in 20 states. Rallies outside investor offices. Testimony in front of lawmakers. United States senators took up their cause. Pension funds that had money invested with these very private equity firms began asking pointed questions about what had been done in their name. For a moment, 33,000 fired retail workers turned themselves into a national argument about who Wall Street actually answers to when its bets go wrong. That $20 million fund was their victory small against everything that had been taken, but wrung out of firms that had insisted there was nothing left to give. There is one more detail the autopsy can't ignore. On March 22, 2018, just days after the liquidation was announced, Charles Lazarus, the man who had built the whole thing from a baby furniture shop, died at the age of 94. The founder outlived his company by barely a week. Whatever you believe about coincidence, the empire and the man who dreamed it up went into the ground together. And the cruelest twist came after. Once the stores were gone, the brand turned out to still be worth something. New owners bought the name, opened a handful of small shops, and cut deals to place Toys R Us corners inside other retailers' stores. Geoffrey the giraffe kept turning up in ads, a friendly ghost haunting the malls his empire used to rule. It was proof of the thing this table keeps finding. The brand never died, and the customers never left. Only the company, buried under someone else's debt, actually went into the ground. So let's fill out the report. Cause of death: not Amazon, not Walmart, not even the internet, though all of them landed blows. The official finding on this table is death by leveraged buyout, a healthy, profitable body, loaded with more than $5 billion of borrowed money. It was never given the means to repay. Toys R Us didn't run out of customers. It ran out of oxygen, and this body flashed the same warning signs almost every one of these collapses does. Red flag 1. A company forced to spend its future paying for its past. When interest payments swallow the money, a business needs to compete. The ending is usually already written. Red flag 2. Owners who get paid whether the company lives or dies when the people in charge pull fees and dividends out of a business that's drowning. Their incentives and the company's survival have quietly split apart. And red flag 3. Outsourcing the one thing that will decide your future. Toys R Us paid a rival to run the online store it should have been desperate to build itself. Is it happening again? Look around. The leveraged buyout didn't die with Toys R Us. It's still one of Wall Street's favorite tools, and plenty of the stores and brands you shop at today are quietly carrying debt loaded on by owners who borrowed to buy them. Most of the time you'd never know, right up until the week the doors close. The playbook that killed Geoffrey the giraffe is still very much in print. Here's my question for you, and I genuinely want the comments. When a profitable company gets bought with borrowed money and then dies under the weight of it, who do you think actually killed it? The market? Or the people who signed the deal? Tell me below. The next fortune's already on the table. I'll see you in the morgue.